Hey, listen to Wrestling Up on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MP. As always, I'm Grady, and live on Skype we got Josh.
Yo.
A big weekend of shows in WWE this weekend, obviously with Bash in Berlin for the main roster and NXT No Mercy for NXT. Let's just crack into it and talk about these 5 matches from Berlin. We'll go top to the bottom. Bottom to the top of the card. Undisputed WWE Championship, Cody Rhodes taking on his friend and seemingly still friend afterwards, Kevin Owens.
Yeah, it was a good match. Kind of be expected with the two people involved. Um, there was definitely a lot of like question marks during the match. Is Kevin Owens turning? Is he not? No, he's not turning. All right, let's see what they do on SmackDown. Um, because I'm not sure. One, I'm not sure if this feud is over with, or two, if they're starting to lay the groundwork for another feud, which I guess we'll talk about later. Event.
Yeah, your words from the previous show echo in my brain, where you were very wanting Kevin Owens to not turn here in favor of a different heel turn on Cody Rhodes, from somebody who competed later on in the night. And throughout the entire match, I was like, is Josh going to get what he wants? Is he? And then there was so much teasing from Owens that you can pretty confidently say that if he had that killer instinct and he pulled the trigger on the heel turn, there's a good shot he could have beaten Cody Rhodes. He was holding back quite a few of his old tactics that we've seen Kevin Owens use before. He's softened up a little bit.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, I just think it was as much as I get the idea of having enough heels for Cody. Um, I just don't like the idea of it being Kevin. I think there's more that they can do with him on the face side, and that I think there's just and I think there's more money in it for involved for another person to be that guy that turns on Cody.
Fair enough. Well, let's talk about the Women's Tag Team Championship, where there was potentially going to be a turn here as well. The Unholy Union going up against Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. Everybody held it together again.
Yeah, this one I think was the most surprising match of the weekend because neither of us saw the outcome coming. Um, yeah, we have new champions. Round two for Bianca and Jade.
Yeah, it seems like obviously they didn't explode. There wasn't a massive like miscommunication throughout the match. They've got the titles back. Um, there was a number one contenders match on Raw. So the Unholy Union will be getting the next shot again. Potentially inaudible based on damage control, but short term, Belair and Cargill with the titles. I doubt they drop them immediately, but that does potentially mean that we're eyeing up a rumble or potentially even later than that for the explosion between these two and the eventual singles match.
Yeah, I think it makes more sense. We should have seen it coming because I think WrestleMania makes more sense than some random pay-per-view like Bad Blood or Survivor Series for that match to happen.
Yeah, I think the
Um,
only reason that we weren't pulling the trigger is just because it is, 6, 7 months away, and it's like, oh, are we going to be waiting that long to get the match? And the easiest way to get us from A to B there is to put the titles back on Belair and Cargill and just have them run roughshod through that women's tag division, right?
yeah. Um, yeah, I think Royal Rumble's probably a good time to uh, probably switch the titles off of them and start the process. Because you could have them lose the titles in a match and then later on in the night have them be in the Rumble match itself and one of them eliminate the other, and that be a catalyst.
The oh so classic way to get yourself a WrestleMania match. Just eliminate somebody and immediately enter a feud with them.
Yep.
It works. And I guess talking about feuds that started at the Royal Rumble, that's a stretch. The strap match between CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, uh, proven two things. One, we are getting that third match between them, and two, I still hate the strap match stipulation.
Yeah, it's fine. It is what it is. You just have to know what you're getting into, um, with a strap match because you have with in WWE with it being a PG product, um, you pretty much know that they have to temper it somehow, and it's going to be the touching the corners. Um, it it's fine. I don't really have a problem with it that much as long as they make use of it. And I think they did a pretty good job here.
Yeah, I think it's potentially my personal dislike for the stipulation more than anything. Like, I'm not saying it was a bad match between the two. We still got that um, to try to use a pay per view title, that bad blood boiling between the two of them. Um, Punk got the bracelet back, even if it was only for a couple of nights, but it propelled the story forward. It let them dabble their toes into the sort of brutally beating up each other that we know we're going to see at the next show. I think ultimately it was a great second match in the story, uh, which is what its purpose was, even if I don't like the stipulation.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, it's fine. It is what it is, and we're getting round three after Drew McIntyre absolutely demolished CM Punk on Raw and destroyed said bracelet championship,
Yeah,
making sure that he's the last person to ever hold it.
yeah, it if anything to me, it almost will focus up Punk. Like you've seen him in the last two matches they've had where he's been heavily distracted by the bracelet's influence, whether it be somebody wearing it, Seth or Drew, or caring more about putting the bracelet back on than hitting the fourth corner. Um, and you take away that distraction, you should, in theory, get a focused up CM Punk that wants nothing to do more than just beat up Drew McIntyre.
Yeah. I will also say this: whoever wins this match is probably going to be the number one contender for the World Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah, I think you've basically got your top two stars that are not champions on the roster, um, going into this what 3 4 month feud. Um, as you say, whoever comes out of it with that momentum likely to be going up against that world heavyweight champion, and I wouldn't be shocked if the other one is right behind him. Um, Anybody can work. To be fair, with combinations of faces and heels, and Punk and Drew have already blurred that 100 times over. I don't know who's the good guy in that feud. It's just a good old fashioned people wanting to beat up on the other person, and nobody's particularly good.
Yeah, it's a good old fashioned blood feud.
Yeah. I wanted to stop uh, using words like bad blood. I felt like I was making too many segues to the pay per view, but there was no other way to describe those two.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna do it. And talking about blood feuds and bad blood between people, Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley coming out on top of the Judgment Day.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense. I don't like it because I think I'd rather have had Dom and Liv win, but it gives them an excuse to continue on. Plus, there was a massive beatdown afterwards, and it kind of gives them their heat back as a result. And then you had the games that Liv and Dom played on Raw, attacking Rhea. So we know we're getting a straight up singles match between them at Bad Blood. I say we'll probably find out next week or something like that, or a week or two, that it's going to be in the cell. Because I think out of every possible women's match that you could possibly throw on the card, I think it's the only match that deserves that particular stipulation.
Yeah, for sure. I think much like talking about the Punk and the McIntyre match being the perfect second match of the feud, this is not necessarily the second, but the second of since Rhea's return. You know, gets screwed over in the first, gets the win in the second, and then goes in clean to the third. Um, I think the Judgment Day are taking quite a lot of losses lately. Obviously, they kick out Damian Priest, they kick out Rhea Ripley. They still hold tag titles for now, but it's been a while since we've seen some high profile wins. Dom and Liv losing here, then on Raw. The Judgment Day also picking up some losses thanks to this feud. So I would like to see them pick up a little bit of tallies in the W column. Um, because it's all good just beating up people after the matches, but I feel like you gotta prove it bell to bell a couple times, especially if we are going Priest Finn or we're going Priest Mysterio, whichever combination for Priest we end up going to. Wanting to see or wanting to think that the other person has a chance.
Yeah. The problem is that when you remove a Damian Priest, you remove a Rhea Ripley, and you replace it with, well, I will say Liv in her case kind of doesn't fit in this category because Liv has been doing some of the best work of her career the last few months. But then you replace Damian Priest with Carlito.
Look, there was an overlap, but yes, Carlito is a very different beast than a Damian Priest.
Yeah. So and you take away the wins that they were getting, Rhea and Damian, and then you realize what was left in the Judgment Day, and you have basically the guy that's designed to get every loss and take all the beatings in JD McDonough, and then you have Dominic who doesn't have to wrestle or anything, and he gets heat, so he's not going to wrestle much. And then you have Finn who's basically saying, I'm not going to fight you, Damian, but I'm going to attack you when you least expect it. So he's not wrestling much, even though he is part of a tag team. And then you have Carlito, who's basically the JD McDonough role, but not as defined.
Yeah, it's a lot of like lower card guys, or as you say, a lot of chicken poop heels. How to phrase that one nicely. And yeah, it's a lot of losses. Even you look at Finn Balor, and how many times he lost to Jey Uso in the run up this year already. It was like that month period where he'd lost like 4 times to Jey Uso, who's found his way back into this feud by seemingly going on a date with Rhea. I don't know. That part's getting more confusing, but we'll see how that one all plays out. Let's finish off Bash in Berlin before we go to the entrance theme. World Heavyweight Championship, it's on the line. Gunther, Randy Orton, almost 35 minutes.
Phenomenal match. Gunther and Randy Orton, I think, had a classic match and had an old school match. It was a slow build to crescendo. Gunther and Randy Orton just absolutely tore the house down, and I think it was also another sign of just seeing just how much Randy Orton is loving life right now. Yeah, him having fun with the crowd singing his theme, doing the wave with the crowd, supposedly saying that he gained a bunch of weight eating Nutella from wanting a sponsorship. I'm loving Randy Orton in 2024. Absolutely loving him. Gunther is a credible champion, and it looks like that he's got his next opponent already lined up. It seems, but it's just Gunther's the man on Raw right now, and we'll have to see who can overcome him eventually, and I hope that it is not in a year and a half.
Yeah, I think rolling it back to Randy Orton, we always said that a Randy Orton whose heart is in it, and who was motivated and wanted to be there is a top 5 guy. He's got insane talent, and sometimes he wanted to be there, sometimes he didn't want to be there, but as you say, this year, 2024, he's just been knocking it out of the park, having fun, being himself, and just doing what he does best. And whether that be, doing a comedy bit over here, or wrestling 35 minutes with Gunther in a hard hitting long match, where he gets choked out at the end of it. You know, it's great to see Randy Orton on this level. Um, yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah. Um, I think one element is there was serious questions on whether or not he could actually come back. Um, when he was gone, he didn't know if he was going to be forced to retire with the injury he had.
Mhm.
So I think when he actually made his return, which we have to remind was a Survivor Series last year, which has almost been a year now. He has been doing everything he can to have as much fun as he can, getting people over because Randy Orton is at such a stage of his career, he can't he can take losses 3 times a week and it wouldn't matter. It's not going to affect the fact that he's a legend, that he's a Hall of Famer, and that he is arguable. You can put an argument for him being one of the greatest of all time, just because of his abilities. Um, so I I I love the main event. I'm glad it was Gunther that got the honor of being uh, the main event because it was Berlin. It had to be this match. If it had been anywhere else, I think the show is flipped. I think the World Heavyweight Championship starts the show and the Universal Championship ends it, just because this is the where the titles are in their lineage.
Mhm.
But because it's an Austrian holding the title, walking into German land, it had to be the main event, and they knocked it out of the park. It was definitely a match of the year candidate.
Banger.
Banger.
Um, and yeah, I just want to also mention, like with Gunther, his reigns can uh, potentially turn into like monster of the week kind of people, and I love seeing the different combinations that we get out of it because, as you mentioned, we've already got his next opponent, seemingly with Sami Zayn coming out, and so you can see Gunther sort of go through a Randy Orton, a Sami Zayn, and then potentially a CM Punk or a Drew McIntyre, depending what happens after Bad Blood. All within like quick succession, couple of months. And then you just start seeing Gunther getting these names on his list. And we saw it with the Intercontinental title, we saw it with the NXT UK title before that. His reigns to me are always really defined by, the amount and the talent that he's taken out along the way in his reigns. Maybe not a year and a half, as you say, but I'm sure it won't be a month and a half.
No, I'm thinking WrestleMania. I really think that's when he loses it. Um, and I think he loses it to Jey Uso. Um,
Oh, we'll have to see what happens, but let's jump into the entrance theme of the week quite late in the show. But hey, it is Gunther's entrance theme to celebrate Bash in Berlin. And you're back to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MPR. I'm Grady, he's Josh. NXT No Mercy, we got about 8 minutes, so I'm just going to hit the important points, I guess. Starting off Zachary Wentz, Wesley. We see Zachary come out on top. TNA Superstar picking up the win.
the right decision, first off. And the reason it's the right decision is because Zachary Wentz, literally the night before, won the TNA X Division Championship on a TNA special, plus special. Um, I wish I'd been able to go because I actually could have bought tickets because it was in Louisville,
Hmm.
but I couldn't go. Oh well. But it was fun. It was a good match, and I don't think they're done. I could definitely, absolutely see Wesley following Wentz to TNA and challenging him for the X Division Championship, maybe at Bound for Glory.
Definitely what I see. I was talking to my partner while we were watching the match, and I'm like, these two are gonna go at it again on TNA television or TNA programming. I think that's a damn near lock. Talking about teams going at it again, Chase University, Axiom and Nathan Frazier. Uh, Axiom and Fraser picking the titles back up, Chase U exploding. The main roster survived all of theirs not exploding, but Ridge Holland didn't like that, and it wasn't Duke's fault.
Yeah, I'm turning in my membership for Chase University because at this point, they've had they've had the two titles twice. They've held them for less than a month, I think, total. Um, I, I mean, seriously, I get maybe the whole blowing up Chase U through Ridge Holland, and honestly, people are saying this is the most interesting they've ever been in him, uh, in NXT. So yay, but couldn't we have at least had a decent reign for Andre? Uh,
Yeah, it does seem impossible for Chase U to be holding championships for any decent amount of time.
yeah, yeah, and Ridge destroyed it. And then he destroyed Duke Hudson's MVP trophy in a segment on NXT tonight. And explained his reasonings, and it is what it is. Um, I kind of wanted Axel and Nathan to lose here, not just because I like Chase U University. I wanted to see them go longer. I wanted to see them either move on and split or move up to the next to the main roster as a tag team. I didn't think they needed the titles back right after losing them.
Yeah, I. It's an interesting one. I'm really hoping that Axiom and Fraser aren't holding on to these titles for much longer, but that will just make it another a quick succession. Like if you look at the last few NXT Tag Team Champions, you've got D'Angelo, Chase U, D'Angelo, Breaker and Corbin, Fraser and Axiom, Chase U, Fraser and Axiom. Same kind of names, just sort of rotating around here. D'Angelo's family, Chase U, Fraser and Axiom, other than a small little bump in the road with Breaker and Corbin, have just been holding these titles and switching it around. So I want to see some new faces come up in that NXT Tag Team division, and I want to see somebody else picking up these titles soon.
I take that back. Chase U has held the titles for a total of 41 days. So yeah, they have held it for more than a month.
Congrats.
Total. Yeah, 21 days for the one and 20 for the other.
Looking on at the NXT Women's Championship, Roxanne Perez successfully defending against Jada Parker, as we expected she would. And then, as we expected, we got a debut. Giulia, formerly from Japan's Stardom, coming on out and staking her claim, and very clearly staking her claim on NXT this week, challenging Roxanne for the CW debut show.
Yep. 3 words. Me, you, CW. CW is technically not a word, but it works. I will have to wait and see on that one, but I think Roxanne may have met her match. I don't know anything about Giulia. In fact, I didn't even know how to pronounce her name until I saw somebody actually say it's pronounced Giulia. I'm like, oh, okay.
It's a weird spelling for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Because I was like, Giulia. But yeah. Roxanne Perez is really talented, and the women's division is just getting more and more stacked in NXT as you realize that some of the top people are about to filter out.
Mm-hmm.
Like Roxanne. As soon as she loses this title, she won't have much left to do in NXT. She will need to be moved up, but they will need to have a plan when they do that. Because if they bomb her call up, that's going to be sad because she is uber talented. I also want to say Jada Parker put on a pretty good show with her too. But yeah, it's all about Giulia. It's all about her and whether or not she wins it on the debut edition of CW. NXT on CW.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Giulia coming over from Stardom. Fortunately, got to actually be in Japan when she announced that she'd be leaving prior to the whole Marigold thing. And yeah, excited to see what she does on NXT and how she can adapt to that more American style. We've seen quite a few Japanese female wrestlers come through and do it quite well. So here's hoping that Giulia can click into that as well. And yeah, Roxanne's days are numbered for sure. All of my money is in the Giulia stock, and we're gonna go to the moon, to quote Cameron Grimes. Well, we've run out of time to talk about the main event. We didn't believe in Joe Hendry enough. There we go.
Mm.
Um,
It is what it is. I don't think Joe in NXT or WWE is done. I could see him maybe answering one of LA Knight's open challenges.
yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens for Hendry and his future with the WWE, because that's all we've got time for. It's been great talking to you.
Maybe.
You can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/wrestling R&D Upper, our Twitter page, twitter.com/wrestling R&D Upper, our YouTube page, youtube.com/wrestling RND Up, and we will see you next week.